Michael Tuffery is a reputable artist from Pacific Island descent. He was born and currently lives in Wellington, New Zealand. Tuffery is well known for working with many types of media, like printmaking, sculpture, set designs, woodcuts, and performance pieces. As a young child, Michael found it very hard to communicate with his peers due to his dyslexia. He said drawing was his first language and used it to express himself. Later in his life, he attended Newlands College to receive his degree in fine arts. In 1987, he received the MASPAC Queen Elizabeth II Study Grant to travel all around the Pacific Islands teaching children about his artwork. He originally hated being Samoan, but visiting the islands where his ancestors were from helped him develop a passion for his heritage. In 1995, Tuffery took part in the Bottled Ocean, an exhibition of works by New Zealand artists of Pacific Island descent which toured New Zealand. Tuffery worked with many different varieties of media. When asked why, he said, "I'm fascinated by everything I see around me. I like to have a go, interpret how I see things, because if you don't try, you'll never know." Here we have Michael Tuffery's Pisupu Lua'afi, Corned Beef 2000, made in 1994, composed of corned beef tins that had been flattened, cut, or riveted into place. You may be thinking to yourself, why isn't the name just cow? Well, in the 1960s, former Chief Justice of Samoa wrote, "When Samoans were first introduced to the wonder of tin food, this was in the form of pea soup. As no Samoan word can end in a consonant, they tacked on an O on the end and made the Samoan form of the English term pea soup to pisupo. As time wore on and other edible matter arrived in tins, the generic term pisupo was used for all of it. The use of 2000 in Corned Beef 2000 is suggestive towards millennial fantasies and cult practices." The large life-size cattle beast is solid, hard-edged, and weighty. Scale is important to this piece because it is life-size, which appeals to the eye. It is covered with bright yellow and red tin cans. Some formal elements include everyday items, symmetrical body, metallic structure, and three-dimensional. The cattle also has some minimalist elements by the use of industrialized products. The cattle stylistically depicts realism by the correct proportions of the cattle. Corned beef was a favorite food source in the islands. It also had become a common part of the ceremonial gifts in the Pacific Island economy. Most island feast foods gifted pigs and vegetables, whereas canned corned beef is a processed food high in saturated fat, salt, and cholesterol. These are all things that contribute to high incidences of diabetes and heart disease. Pisupu Lua'afi also acknowledges serious issues of community health and economic sovereignty in the food economy. Tuffery expressed interest in the introduction of cattle to New Zealand and the Pacific Islands and how they impact negatively on the plants, landscapes, and waterways of these countries, as well as how industrialized approaches to farming disrupt traditional food production. Tin during the period that this piece was made was discarded in the Pacific Ocean after it was emptied. Tuffery is trying to point out the challenge of waste disposal in the islands. Tuffery wanted his piece to signify a reoccurring question on whether foreign intervention encourages independence or fosters dependency. Tuffery said himself, "My cornea beef bullock talks about the impact of global trade and colonial economies on Pacific Island cultures. Specifically, it comments on how imported commodities has become an integral part of the Polynesian customs of feasting and gift-giving." The patron for Pisupu Lua'afi was Tuffery. There is no specific site because it is intended to be a public piece, but the work is currently at the Museum of New Zealand. The next piece I will be discussing is the processional welcoming of Queen Elizabeth II in Fiji in 1953. This multimedia piece includes photography, videos, and documentation. This work continues with the theme of European contact with Polynesian culture. On December 17, 1953, a newly crowned Queen Elizabeth II and her husband Prince Philip arrived on the island of Fiji, which was an English colony, and stayed for 3 days before continuing on their first tour of the nations of England in the Pacific Islands. While in Fiji, she visited hospitals and schools and met with many Fijian politicians. Her welcoming was grand and was done with traditional Fijian methods of procession. The video depicts her arriving by boat. The whole video is in black and white, and all the people are in Polynesian attire except for Queen Elizabeth and other guests from overseas. During her stay, the Queen is also videoed paying respect to the war memorial and placing a wreath on the grave. The videos function as documentation of the Queen's first visit to Fiji, and it shows the culture's gratitude and respect of the Queen. The video also demonstrated the alliance of the main European government and the Pacific Islands. The mixed media procession also shows the island's culture with dances, food, clothing, and other customs. The video doesn't give you a day in the life or vlog of a day in a Polynesian islander, but it does give a sense of what Polynesian also in black and white depict women wearing mossy skirts or bark cloth skirts painted with geometric patterns. Mossy is made by stripping the inner bark of mulberry trees, soaking it, then beating it into strips of cloth that are stuck together, usually by a paste made of arrowroot. Bold and intricate geometric patterns in red, white, and black are often painted onto the mossy. In the photograph, the women carry rolls of the woven mats. Similar to mossy, Fijian mats, or natu, served as a type of ritual exchange and tribute in Fijian society. Natu are begun by stripping, boiling, drying, blackening, and then softening leaves from Pandana's plant. The dried leaves are then woven into tight, often diagonal patterns that culminate into frayed or fringed edges. While the mats that the women in this photograph are carrying may seem too plain to present to the Queen of England, their simplicity is an indication of their importance. In Fiji, the simpler the design, the more meaningful its function. After 3 days on the island of Fiji, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip departed for the King of Tonga. On Tonga, they were greeted warmly by Queen Saloti and other members of the royal Tongan family. On the occasion of her visit to Tonga, an enormous bark cloth was commissioned in Queen Elizabeth's honor and had her initials ERIII painted onto the rare piece of natu. It is just shy of 75 feet in length and is significant in commemorating Queen Elizabeth's visit. Queen Saloti ordered for many natu to be made for her and Queen Elizabeth to walk on. Natu lined the pathways in order to honor the royal family. The same natu was placed under the coffin of Queen Saloti when her body was flown back to Tonga in 1960 after an extended stay in the New Zealand hospital. The bark cloth is now in the collection of Te Papa Museum of New Zealand, after being donated by the pilot who had flown Queen Saloti's body to Tonga, to whom the bark cloth had been given to the Tongan royal family. The video and pictures are meant for public in order to spread Polynesian culture. Pacific Island culture uniting with European culture. Even though the two pieces are visually very different, they both similarly show the impact of Europeans on the islands. The works differ because Corned Beef 2000 shows European impact negatively, whereas the processional welcoming shows the positive side of the collision of the two cultures.